Thank you for that. So this is a joint paper with Olivia. It's an academic survey paper, 70 pages in length, 130 plus references. But I'm going to give you not a detailed expose today, but just an overview of 5 key takeaways. But first, a little motivation and definition. What is health span? It is that period of your lifespan that precedes the onset of the diseases of aging, whether those be cardiovascular, cancer, neurodegenerative, and so forth. Why should we study it? One is that gains in lifespan are slowing around the world, but particularly in rich aging countries. 2, the healthcare costs associated with aging and poor health can be substantial. In one study, the costs associated with the comorbidities or the illnesses associated with obesity, if your BMI is between 30 and 40, healthcare costs were 50% higher than normal BMI, but they were twice as high if your BMI exceeded 40, and roughly 40% of the American adult population fits into one of those 2 categories, where obesity is most acute. Meanwhile, a new science called geroscience is suggesting that instead of targeting specific diseases of aging, we should target underlying cellular processes. I'll spend a bit of time on that as well. And it's also fostering a new venture capital-led longevity and health span marketplace. So it is indeed time to turn our attention from living longer to living healthier and better lives. So the first takeaway has to do with how we measure health span. Conventional measures are being extended by biology, really biochemistry-based measures, particularly a new technology called omics measures. So what are the conventional measures shown on the left? My favorite, and of course the top line number, is HAIL, which has to be the most beautifully named statistic in the world, at least in English, which stands for healthy life expectancy. I show you here data for HAIL and life expectancy for high-income countries, meaning aged societies, from the GBD 2019. For those of you not familiar with the GBD, it is the most extraordinary comprehensive survey of global health coming out of the World Health Organization, the Gates Foundation, and of course the University of Washington, the Global Burden of Disease, it's called. I highly recommend you learn more about it. But in 2019, life expectancy for this population was 81.2 years. HAIL was estimated at 69.5 years, so a difference of roughly 12 years on average in this at a population level statistic spent affected by the diseases of old age, diseases and disability of old age. Other statistics are DALY's, intrinsic capacity, working age, or cognitive life expectancy. The list actually goes on, and academics and other researchers are developing great measures using conventional health system data. But the new kid on the block is the omics measures. It's preceded by phenotype age, which is really just, you can get these measures from a blood test at your doctor's office. But the omics measures really measure biochemical composition of your genome, proteins in your body, and the metabolic system, so alternately called genomics, proteomics, and metabolomics. Did I get that right? Anyway, the most famous application of this is estimating a biological age for aging. You may be 70 years old, but according to these measures, your body is only 65, hooray, or you're actually 75, not so good. And it's actually been used in experimental settings to estimate the age of specific organs in your body, which could be particularly valuable for clinicians. For example, you might be 70 years old, but your heart is 80, and your heart age is 80, and your brain is 60. You remember last summer, there was a big study that said there are these huge biochemical changes in human beings somewhere around your early 40s when you hit midlife, and then your early 60s. That was an omics study. So this technology, look out for it. Second is on health span determinants. There's quite an extensive, the list of things that affect health are obviously enormous. That list is enormous, but let's focus on 2. Like longevity, health span exhibits very sizable gradients with respect to socioeconomic status and healthy behaviors. From a couple studies in the paper, in the Netherlands, low-income 35-year-olds have the same health as high-income 50-year-olds. In the US, it's worse, actually. Low-income 20-year-olds report worse health than high-income 50-year-olds. So think about that, walking down the street one day. The low-income 20-year-olds, you see if you can estimate their income from looking at them, is worse than the high-income 50-year-olds you know. You see similar effects. These gradients exist for wealth, education, and race and ethnicity. They exist in the Nordic countries, they exist in America, they exist in continental Europe, and elsewhere around the globe. On the behavioral side, the big 5 healthy behaviors are defined by a couple studies: no smoking, moderate alcohol, normal BMI, 30 minutes of exercise a day. Are we all getting that? And a healthy diet, as they calculated it. Look at these effects for women. The men effects are smaller. If you had all 5 healthy behaviors as a woman, you'd expect to live 14 years longer. And if you had 4 or 5 of the behaviors, you'd have 10 years more of health span compared to people who had none of these behaviors. And this is a US population study. Unfortunately, the bad news is that who are the people who are the healthiest who observed all 5? 2% of the population. And what percent of the population had 4 or 5 healthy behaviors? 10%. A friend of mine read the paper. He said after reading this section, he put the paper down, laid on the living room floor, and waited for death to come. I had to admit that was the best part of writing this paper. After a few minutes, he got up and proceeded to read the rest. The other development that we cover in this paper is the science of the new science of aging called neuroscience, which posits that both health spans and longevity can be enhanced by targeting defects in fundamental cellular processes. So not an organ-by-organ medicine, but a sort of cellular process medicine. One famous model from Cell magazine lists 12 hallmarks of aging. I just list 3 here. Cell senescence, the tendency of your body to accumulate dead cells as you age, as morbid as that sounds. It's happening to all of us. The loss of proteostasis. One good example of this is proteins in your body to work effectively have to fold, and as you get older, they misfold. And mitochondrial dysfunction is sort of a breakdown in the fundamental cellular energy process you might have learned in high school biology. And so the new model coming out of neuroscience is, let's not treat your cancer, my heart disease, your neurodegenerative problem. Let's treat a cellular dysfunction like cellular senescence, which may be the common cause for all of those different diseases. I'll just give you an illustration of this. Take the case of the drug metformin, which is the frontline drug for diabetes treatment. So again, it's a disease-based treatment. One of the things you find about metformin is people who take metformin for diabetes live longer than people who never have diabetes. So this has always suggested that metformin seems to have this longevity-enhancing characteristic, and it's now the subject of clinical trials. I didn't put this in the paper. I don't think Olivia would have let me, but is metformin the new fluoride? Quite possibly, coming soon. The fourth element of this is the longevity marketplace. So there's a big venture capital-led marketplace here, but we do say that caveat emptor, let the buyer beware, remains an important caution because many of these efforts are really based on sales puffery, not hard science. Now, just to make it clear, the longevity marketplace is not the wellness marketplace, which you're all probably participating in. If you go to a gym, if you've had a massage, if you've gone to a wellness retreat, if you, like people at my gym, get post-workout IV infusions of vitamins, that's the wellness market. But the venture capital-based longevity marketplace is focused on such areas as xenotherapeutics, drugs to reduce cellular senescence, repurposed drugs like metformin, longevity diagnostics to calculate your effective biological age, clinics, $40,000 a year membership in the Equinox Longevity Clinic in New York and in Philly down here at Rittenhouse Square, all the way down to companion longevity, which is not the longevity of your spouse or your partner, it's the longevity of your dog or cat. So people are working on extending those. There's a huge social media, there's huge authors in this area, but caveat emptor really remains an important consideration in this marketplace. So the fifth part of the paper really focuses on policy and what to do about this. And when you think about it, if we could change fundamental human behaviors in important ways, there'd be really extraordinary benefits from improved health span. But any public health initiative would need to go well beyond the scope of the global anti-smoking effort. Let me put it a different way. The global anti-smoking effort would pale in comparison to anything we'd have to do in this arena. The potential benefits listed on the left, they're obvious: reduced health costs, or let's say more deferred health costs, and compressed health costs, to borrow David's language, improved individual and social welfare from living a longer, healthier life, higher worker productivity, labor force participation, everybody better prepared for retirement in an aging society, and so forth. So the list of potential benefits from extending health span are enormous. But it's really on the policy side that's the open question. We only focus on two issues. One, on the governmental policy side, we focus on the growing pandemic around the world of metabolic disease and obesity, and the problem of ultra-processed foods and nutrition labeling. So we describe, for example, the Brazilian NOVA system, which is gaining traction in a number of countries for identifying ultra-processed foods. The effects of sin taxes. The Philly sin tax in the soda tax has reduced local obesity rates by 2 percentage points since its incidence a few years ago. So that's interesting result. Remains to be confirmed that it'll be extended. And then, of course, we also talk about the pharma intervention through GLP-1 drugs like Ozempic and Mounjaro. There are issues of cost and access, but also compliance and a long-term effectiveness. The other sort of what to do part of the paper focuses on wellness programs from employers, but most of these tend to be voluntary and low effort. And so you see, for example, in the one formal academic evaluation of these programs, there are few effects after 2 years. What's fairly clear from the work so far is that if employers are going to be a locus of activity in this area, the effort is going to have to be dramatically higher and the approach quite different. So we conclude with the following outstanding question: to extend lifespan in an aging world, what will it take? Will it take major public health programs that alter fundamental behaviors around food, exercise, drink, drugs, sleep, social relationships, stress, the environment, and by the way, other things still to be discovered? Yes. Will it take concerted effort in the workplace and schools and throughout health systems of the world to address healthy living? And why don't we add the billions of households around the world to address healthy living while we're at it? And finally, will it take one or more expensive novel medications that can offer major health benefits, for example, metformin of the future, either at the disease level, a 50% reduction in Alzheimer's, or a cellular process level, like metformin? And the answer is probably all three. Thank you.